Nintendo isn't a perfect company, is what a nerd would say. Nintendo is great. They made Luigi and Waluigi and Gooigi? So maybe they're not perfect, but they sure are great. However, even in their imperfections, there's thousands of people who would take an army of bullets for Nintendo and still tattoo Link on their thigh. So why? Why are Nintendo fans so devoted? First, it's necessary to look at the culture around the Nintendo fanbase. If you go into a random bar and mention that you're a Luigi enjoyer, no one bats an eye. But when you go into Twitter, formerly known as X, and tell the world how much you love sucking Wario's toes, everyone loses their minds. So what gives? Why does the internet have such a problem with Nintendo guys? While most of the time it's petty internet squabbles, occasionally there are good arguments against Nintendo, such as the fact their consoles are underpowered, or maybe their games are overpriced, or maybe they're just the baby company for little babies, and real men should play Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 Part 2 Remake, or whatever. Now, if you're a Nintendo fan, I expect you have already thought out a dozen comebacks to those questions, and that's what being a Nintendo fan means. You gotta stick up for the little guy when the going gets tough. If you don't, then Mr. Miyamoto might pretend we actually exist. So let's check out that Miyamoto guy, because he's actually a huge reason Nintendo has such devoted fans. But no matter how devoted we are to Nintendo, there's one thing everybody should be devoted to, and that's a good education. And you can start working on receiving one today with our sponsor, Southern New Hampshire University. Because guess what? With SNHU's game development program, you can learn all that you need to make your dream game. With a flawless user interface from UI design to the mastery of the world itself with lessons in game physics. The faculty at SNHU have real-world experience, so you'll always have the opportunity to connect with people in the industry. At SNHU, you could make dynamic experiences designed around all your passions. Maybe you want to make a game about a carpenter who's terrified of wood, or maybe one about a scientist who is allergic to microscopes. I don't know how you would make that game, but you could learn everything you need to make your dreams come true by visiting snhu.edu/arctic in the description, and get yourself the best Christmas present of all, an education. Again, check out snhu.edu/arctic. Thanks for watching the ad, back to the video. Compared to other developers of his age, Shigeru Miyamoto holds an incredibly fascinating design philosophy. Wikipedia describes it in the simplest way. Nintendo doesn't use focus groups. Instead, Miyamoto figures out if a game is fun for himself. Now, if that were the only unique thing, that would be pretty boring, since that's sorta how everyone should make their games. However, it doesn't end there, because Miyamoto himself is very unique in how he enjoys games. Historically, Miyamoto has been the anti-story guy, which is mostly true, and isn't the greatest philosophy for a few reasons, but it's what he subsidizes the story with. Miyamoto puts gameplay and experience above everything else. That means above story and graphics, and on the occasion, performance. At Nintendo, Shigeru Miyamoto led his team with core fun at the forefront. And even as Miyamoto goes on to make blockbuster movies and theme parks and whatever else, that core philosophy is still rooted in every developer there. For the most part. Now, of course, Nintendo isn't the only company trying to make fun games. Sometimes it feels like that, but it's not true. And before you make comments assuming I'm a Nintendo purist or anything, I'll have you know, I also own a Mac. So I'm a genetic flop all around. Going on, there's one developer that makes me a Nintendo fan through and through, and technically, he's not even Nintendo. Masahiro Sakurai is the most devoted developer you'll ever find, and I can guarantee it. I know that because Sakurai is known for working himself to near complete exhaustion anytime he touches a Smash Bros. Game. And I would almost prefer him to not do Smash in that case, but that's a subject for another time. Sakurai is one of the most respectable developers out there. Now, something I want you to see right now is the difference between a developer who cares and bosses who don't care. When you have a director and developer who cares and wants their game released as soon as possible and as best as possible, you have Masahiro Sakurai overworking himself at Sora Ltd. Meanwhile, when your boss doesn't care and just wants money, that's when you have Ubisoft, or EA, or Activision, or really almost all AAA companies, with hundreds of employees overworked with a deadline 2 years earlier than it should be. Don't get me wrong, Nintendo isn't a saint either, but we'll get to that. Before then, there's a lot of critiques of being a Nintendo fan. I mean, what if it's just all nostalgia? Well, I'm certainly nostalgic for the GameCube and Wii, that's why I have them next to me at all times. But I'm also nostalgic for the Xbox 360, and CRT TVs, and Asbestos. So why didn't I make any of those my whole personality? Because they don't have Luigi. It's honestly hard to explain, but Nintendo makes their games wholly fun. When I boot up a game with that Nintendo seal of quality, I don't expect the prettiest experience, or the fastest experience, or the cheapest experience, or the most gripping experience. But I know I'm going to be playing a fun game that's going to stick with me for the rest of my life. And in that sense, I'd like to consider Nintendo a really big indie company. Because just like indies, they're focused on making simply fun games. However, we gotta remember that really big part. Nintendo isn't an indie company. They make billions a year and they own multiple parks at this point. Nintendo is not our friend, and they will spit on your grave the moment it gets in the way of their IP. Does that mean we should hate Nintendo? Well, sorta, yeah. But not in everything they do. We should hate their IP protections as far as emulation goes, but also respect it partially because it keeps Nintendo at their high bar of quality. But we should hate them when they completely ignore the bar quality when it comes to Mario sports games, and when they go completely drunk when it comes to Paper Mario. I'm gonna teach you a life lesson here. If you don't buy their bad games, eventually, they'll stop making them. So guess what? As hard as it might be for us Nintendo fans, if we don't like the Italian Golf Simulator, then we probably shouldn't buy it. That's Econ 101, baby. And I realize it's kinda sad that Nintendo fans need to be taught how capitalism works. But hey, we're just devoted like that. And if I'm being honest, I prefer Luigi fanboys over Souls-like purists. Nothing against them, it's just, Luigi's so much nicer to me. And you could be nice as well by dropping some well-written feedback to the Xbox fanboys in the comments. And remember to watch out for mistletoe. And as always, keep cool. Bye!